talk in two parts. Okay, the first will be about the issue of gauge. KRDCL is proposing building this line on standard gauge, whereas our Indian Railway gauge is broad gauge. All the existing lines all over the country, including Kerala, are on broad gauge. So if you make it on standard gauge, it becomes a standalone line. You cannot, a train which is running on this line, standard gauge, cannot go on the rest of the network. And trains from the network cannot come on this line. So that's a very serious limitation. The second issue is about land and how it is going to affect the people, because this train will run at 200 kilometer per hour. A train running at 200 kilometer per hour creates a lot of noise and vibrations, ground vibrations and aerodynamic noise. So it will have effect on people who have property very near to where this line will be going. So these are the two main issues. So I'll now start with the issue of gauge. Now, one thing very important that we should keep in mind is that these lines are very costly lines. Like this line, according to KRDCL's estimate, will be about 121 crores per kilometer. That is almost 6 times the cost of a normal railway line. A normal railway line costs about 20 crores per kilometer, including the cost of land. This is 121 crores, so that is almost 6 times. So that's a big jump. Now, when you have a line which has so much capacity, then you should also have traffic. You should have sufficient number of trains to run on it. Now, because you are going to have it on standard gauge, you can run only standard gauge trains. You cannot run, you cannot transfer the existing trains, like you have long distance trains, you have Shatabdi train, you have got Rajdhani express trains. If you make this line on broad gauge, then all these trains, important trains, they can also be brought on the same line. Then your utilization of the capacity improves. Say, for example, to begin with, you may have 20 high speed trains, and you may have 20 to, about 20 trains, normal trains, the fast trains, which can also travel on the same railway line. So your utilization of the capacity improves. It almost doubles. I mean, I'm giving you just one example. My estimate is that it will double if you adopt broad gauge. Now, second advantage, major advantage of broad gauge is that your high speed trains can go to nearby places. Like in the south, they can go to Kanyakumari. Towards east, they can go to Coimbatore, even Mysore and Bangalore. And in the north, they can go towards Mangalore, and even to Goa. So these trains can have extended run. I mean, on this line, they will run at 200 kilometer per hour. Say when it crosses Kasargod and goes towards Mangalore, then it will slow down and run at about 120 or 110, whatever speed is permissible over there. So this is the second advantage, that reach of your trains increases. Your high speed trains can cover a much larger area and not be confined to just this one line from Trivandrum to Kasargod. Now, another important point is the challenge of where to make the stations. If you build this line on broad gauge, then you can use the existing stations for these trains also. Like you will have to decongest, like some of the stations may be already congested, like Thiruvananthapuram is congested, so maybe some trains can be shifted to Kochi and some space can be created so that these high-speed trains can start from Trivandrum. In Kochi, you have got 2-3 stations, so it will not be a problem. At other places, sufficient capacity is there. Kozhikode, Kannur, and even Kasargod. Capacity will not be capacity of the existing stations will not be a problem. So you will be carrying, if you build this line on broad gauge, your line will be going through the city center where your main stations are already there. So people will be able to access this line very quickly. Now, when you are building this line on standard gauge, your stations are quite far away from the city center. Say, for example, Kochi, uh, the place where they are proposing station will be almost 20 to 25 kilometers from Fort Kochi area and maybe about 15 to 20 kilometers from the MG Road area. So that's a lot of distance to be covered, in rush hours. It can, morning and evening rush hour, it may take up to 1 hour or maybe even more to reach the new station. Similarly, at Trivandrum also, the trains will start at Kochiveli. Kochiveli is quite far off, for people living in the proper city proper. Now take same is the case with this Kovalam, this Quilon also. Quilon, the station will be very far off. It will be towards the eastern side, almost 15 kilometers from the existing station. Same thing at Kottayam. Most of the places, the station will be far away. Now, because these are high speed trains where people use it for short distance travel. I mean, these are not meant for long distance travel. So people want don't if the station is far away, then lot of time is consumed in going to the station at the starting point, and then again at the destination you have to go from the station to whatever place you want to go. So this will be a big disincentive to people to use this line. Now, I was reading some news, this yesterday or day before yesterday, Indian Express carried some article where MD of KRDCL is saying that we will be making new smart cities where our new stations are coming. Now, I mean, this is all very fine, smart cities, but you see, these cities to develop take 20, 30 years. I mean, you may start a city, but sufficient number of people to come and live in those cities, it's a very long term process. So, I mean, and then it will be only one of the, it will not be the main, it will not become the main city. It will be just another part of the city. And for a very long time, that city will have hardly any people living in there. So that's not a viable solution to this problem. So now related to gauge is this issue also that because if you make it on broad gauge, then you are using the existing stations. So your requirement of land reduces drastically. Something very unique about Kerala is that, because Kerala is having very high rainfall and its topography is such that it's a narrow strip of land. On one side you have the Arabian Sea, on the other side you have the Western Ghat Mountains, right? So water comes from the mountain during heavy rains. Water comes rushing down from the mountains, and then it enters into backwaters, and then finally it goes into the sea. So, hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. Please, sir, please.
Yeah. So, what in my preliminary study, I had proposed an alignment which will be nearer the sea. It will be about say 1 to 2 kilometers away from the sea. So it will not be affected so much by the floods. But if you make the line, towards the mid highlands, where you have these small hills, then this line will also be very much prone to damage by the floods. And I mean, Kerala has seen some very devastating floods in the last 10 years, and a lot of damage was also this thing. So I think this is another danger, a sort of a environmental issue is there, that if you make a railway line, then you will be making a lot of embankments. In fact, this line is mostly on embankments, It is almost 75% on embankments, and only 25% is in bridges, viaducts, and some small tunnels. So this construction of this line will also affect the movement of rainwater, flood waters, which is being brought down from the Western Ghat hills and then going to the backwaters. So this is another very important issue. And in my view, the cost estimate is a gross underestimation. They are saying that the cost will be about 64,000 crores. Uh, it is their estimate, but I think the cost will be much higher. It will not be less than 1 lakh crore. And now, related to this is another issue of traffic projection. How much traffic this line will get? So, because of all the shortcomings which I have pointed out, stations being far away, then this line will be a standalone line. Your trains cannot go to other places, say Mangalore or Coimbatore or Kanyakumari side. So it is a standalone line. So its traffic, that people traveling will be very less. Now let's take in the preliminary report, which was prepared under my supervision. Traffic projection was given as 37,750. Okay, 37,750. Now they have doubled it. Now they are saying that traffic of 80,000 will be there. Now this is highly improbable. It's not possible at all. Now let's take comparison with Mumbai Ahmedabad bullet train line. Okay. Now Mumbai Ahmedabad bullet train line is also about 500-kilometer long. It also had about 10, 11 stations like this one. Now let's see what is the population of these cities. Now I have calculated this total population of these 11 cities, from Trivandrum to Kasargod. Present estimate is about 40 to 50 lakh. Okay, I mean Trivandrum is the most populous city, followed by Kochi, then Kozhikode, and onwards. So if you add up all this population, say 2021 projection, it comes to about 45 to 50,000. Now, what is the population living on Mumbai Ahmedabad? It is about 200, 200 lakh. Okay, 20 million. So there the population is 5 times.
ഞാൻ മറ്റേ ഫോണിൽ ഒരു മീറ്റിംഗില്ല പറഞ്ഞു തോമസാ.
Hello.
തോമസ് സാർ ഒന്ന് മ്യൂട്ട് ചെയ്യണേ.
അതെ അതെ,
Hello.
പുള്ളിയുടെ വീട് തിരുവല്ല.
Yes, sir. Please continue.
Yeah. So we are seeing this comparison that Mumbai Ahmedabad line has total population in those cities which it will be running through of about 200 lakh, 20 million. Whereas Kerala line, it is only about 4 to 5 million. So population on Mumbai Ahmedabad is about 5 times more. Okay. But you know what is their traffic projection? Their traffic projection is only 35,000. So how can they have projection of 80,000 for Kerala line when the population is very less here, is only 20%, and most of your cities are outside the main city? So this traffic projection is highly exaggerated. I mean, this simple comparison will, I think, convey the point. So, so this is the uh, thing that if you make it on broad gauge, this line, if we make it on broad gauge, then many of these limitations will come down. Traffic utilization of the line will improve because your existing important trains will also be running on that line. Okay, so utilization from that point of view. Secondly, because the main line will be going through the main city center, so more people will patronize this line. They will find it more convenient to go by train rather than going by car or maybe even taking a plane. So uh, the stations will be in the city center, and integration with this thing, extension of the trains to neighboring states like Kanyakumari to Coimbatore and onwards to this thing. So by making this line on broad gauge, you improve everything. Your cost of construction comes down. Your requirement of land comes down. Your capacity utilization improves. So almost everything is an add-on. In every possible way, you benefit by going for broad gauge. And but if you go for standard gauge, then it will seriously compromise on almost everything. Now let's come to now there is one more thing I want to add here. You people might be remembering when I went to when I came to Trivandrum in December 18 to do this study. Everybody was saying, you know, wherever I went, if I went to a bank or if I went to that this line will be elevated. It will be throughout elevated from one end to the other end. So requirement of land will be very less. Disturbance to the existing population will be very less. So everybody was having this impression: this line will be elevated throughout. But now when they realized that cost of elevated line will be extremely high. It will be something like double of what it is here at the present. It will be something like 200 crores per kilometer. So they had to change everything, and now, as I was saying, about 75% of the line will be on ground, on embankment, uh, and only 25% will be on bridges, viaducts, and some tunnels. So, I mean, this is how the project was marketed as being very much people friendly, but it turns out that no, it's going to cause a lot of displacement to the people, lot of inconvenience to the people who will be affected by the construction of this line. Now, I will come to the issue of land now. Now, I I have seen the media. I have not seen the latest report, but I have seen the media reports. They have given requirement of land as very less. I think they are keeping width of the land as about say 18 to 20 meters only. Okay, just 18 to 20-meter wide land they propose to acquire. Now, what happens to people who have houses adjacent to this strip of land? Now, I am sure that those people will find it very inconvenient that a train uh, running at 200 kilometer per hour, and because this is a high capacity line, almost every 5 to 6 minutes or every say maybe even 10 minutes, there will be in peak hours every 4 or 5 minutes there will be a train. So it will be like living in Bombay along the railway track where suburban trains are running. They are, so that's a very important factor, Uh, in my view, they should have acquired not 18 to 20, but at least 40 meter of land, 40-meter width of land, so that people who will be living near the railway line, their uh, their comfort, their conveniences will not be affected. Okay, but because now they have they have reduced the requirement of land, this is going to have serious implications. Now either they should compensate people, because people whose houses are very near, they should be compensated for the noise and for all these things, so many trains running on this thing. Because earlier, the railway was always taking about, say, 40-meter wide, sufficient land, width of land was being taken uh, for future works also, and also keeping all these things into mind. Say, suppose there is a derailment tomorrow, there is an accident of a train. Now, train can capsize also. It can fall off the track. So then, what about the houses? People who are living nearby, their houses can also be affected. Their lives can be endangered if they are living very near. So all these factors are there, I think, which these people have not really examined. I mean, they must examine all these things. What are the implications if you are taking a very narrow strip of land? They may say that we will provide sound barriers to reduce noise, but sound barriers, they all have their limitations. Sound barriers are okay in some cases, but not always, Some buildings may be 3-story high, 4-story high, some may be ground level. So maybe single-story houses may have less effect of noise, but otherwise people will generally be affected by noise and by ground vibrations. So this is a very important factor about the alignment which I had proposed in the preliminary report, which was going along the near the sea coast. It was about 60% elevated. It was 60% elevated. So that reduces the effect on people, because elevated line does not create so much of noise, so much of vibrations, because it is on pillars. And then it goes into deep foundations, so effects are less. Whereas a line on embankment creates much more noise and vibrations. A line going on, that's why, this Bombay Ahmedabad bullet train line is 97% elevated. 97% elevated, and I have got this figure with me. I'll just show you. Now, Mumbai Ahmedabad is 508 kilometers long. 468 kilometer is elevated. So that is almost 90%. 90% is elevated, and 27 kilometer is tunnel near Mumbai. So that is about 5% is on this thing, is in tunnel. And only 13 kilometer is on embankment. 13 kilometers, that is just less than 3%. So this is a general practice all over the world, that when you are making a high speed line, of course this is not 300 kilometers, this is semi high speed, as they say. This is 200, but 200 is also very fast. It is not like the present day trains which run at 100, 110 kilometers. So its speed is almost double. And in fact, these 200-kilometer lines can take 250-kilometer speed also in future. So this speed is also pretty high, quite high speed. So I think I have covered most of the points. So if people have any questions, I can